Welcome to the Real Life Weight Loss Podcast, where we cut through the confusion and get down to the truth about what really works for real people when it comes to losing weight, having incredible health, and a body that you love. We believe that losing weight is really about gaining life, doing things you never thought you could, having renewed confidence, and enjoying your body more than ever. I'm your host, Corey Little. Now let's get to it. Hello, my friends. Welcome back. This is episode number 311, and today we are going to get to the bottom line. Like, what is being overweight or being obese really all about? Is it all about the food, Corey? Is it all about the exercise? Are my hormones just screwed up? Do I need to reduce the cortisol? Is it about balancing out my gut? Well, there's so many things out there in the diet industry, and the longer I do this, I've kind of always known this, but the longer I do this, the more it just confirms that really being overweight is all about two things. Like, at its core, obesity or just being overweight is an indication that we are out of balance. Period. That's it. We are out of balance in a host of different ways. And if I had to guess, nearly every person who's overweight has a few ways that they're out of balance. Now, I'm going to explain that, but here's the thing. I really want you to stick around for this whole episode because we're going to talk a little bit about how someone's relationship with food can get really screwed up. And I don't say that as an indictment on anyone. It isn't like you set out one day to say, hey, I'm going to royally screw up my relationship with food. That's my goal. That's what I'm going to aim to do. No, not at all. If your relationship with food isn't that healthy, if it's kind of in a not so great place, that's okay. It's not like you did it intentionally. Somehow it's just happened over time. But we're going to get into 4 ways that someone might have a poor relationship with food, and I'm going to help you determine, is your relationship with food really kind of messing you up? But it all starts here if we get to the core of what's behind obesity or being overweight, and it's ultimately that we're out of balance. And I want to explain to you and I want to explain to you a few ways that we're out of balance, and then we're going to break into how that relates to our relationship with food. So there are quite a few ways that someone can be out of balance. There can be an imbalance between physical activity and being physically dormant. Notice I didn't say rest there because some of you may be working your butt off, but you have a job that is physically dormant. A lot of times my day is pretty physically dormant. I sit at a laptop or I sit in front of a computer screen all day long, coaching clients, recording podcast episodes, or creating content. And that's pretty physically dormant. It doesn't mean I'm lazy. It doesn't mean that I'm not working hard, just like many of you, right? You have a job that requires you to sit. And maybe it's not sitting at a computer, but maybe you just don't get to move a lot. So the first way that we can be out of balance is between our physical activity, when we're actually moving our body, getting our heart rate up, and then also, between that and being physically dormant, okay? That's the first thing. The second way that we can be out of balance is between sleep and awake time. And some of you may be like, yeah, dude, I know I would love to freaking get more sleep. It just feels impossible. This is not an episode about how to tackle that, but that is a huge imbalance that can really impact, of course, how we feel, but also our cravings and also the way our body's kind of working on the inside and whether or not weight loss becomes a little easier or maybe becomes tougher. Another imbalance that I often see with people who are overweight or obese is between the decadent, super delicious, indulgent foods that we eat versus the leaner, healthier, what some might consider more boring foods that we can eat sometimes. And then, of course, there's the biggie, the crux of it all, the big imbalance, which is between how much food, food is just energy, how much food we eat, how much energy we eat, and how much food or energy we need and use. Now, I could go on and on, but the bottom line is this. If someone is overweight, they're very likely out of balance in one and probably in multiple ways. And here's the thing. What's often underneath this imbalance is a poor relationship with food. And there are 4 ways, there's a ton of ways, but I want to talk to you today about 4 ways that this can manifest. Number 1, we might use food for things it was never meant to do. Number 2, we label it as good. We label it, as in food, as good and bad. And then we see ourselves as good or bad when we eat certain foods. Next up, number 3, we allow food to become way, way too big of a part of our life. And number 4, we don't understand it. Like, we don't get food. We don't understand just how powerful it is and the powerful impacts it has on our body and our life. And then we wonder why we feel like crap, or why we have no energy, or why we have relentless cravings. So those are the 4 ways that we can, over time, form a poor relationship with food, or maybe just exacerbate a poor relationship with food. Now I want to go through each one a little more in depth. So first of all, we use food for things it was never meant to do. And this is probably the one I see most often. If you would consider yourself, or let me say, I was going to say if you would consider yourself an emotional eater or a stress eater, but I really hope you wouldn't do that. Instead of that, change your language. Change your language to this. I am someone who occasionally struggles, who sometimes struggles with stress eating or emotional eating. I don't want you to take that on as an identity. So if you are someone who would say that you occasionally or sometimes or often struggle with stress eating or emotional eating, this is probably true for you. We begin to use food for things it was never meant to do. And it might not just be for stress. We can use food to have fun. It's not like it's a part of something fun, but it is the primary source of fun or enjoyment. Those are 2 very, very different things. There's absolutely nothing wrong if food plays a role in a really fun thing that's happening in life from time to time. But when food is the primary source of fun or enjoyment in our life, and that can be a really tough pill to swallow, it takes a tremendous amount of self-honesty to see that. But when that becomes the case, we are massively out of balance, and our relationship with food is going to suffer. The next way that food can be used in a way it was never meant to is we'll use it as an escape. And this starts getting into the whole stress eating thing. We just want to escape stress, or maybe escape some other area of our life where we're unhappy or unsatisfied. And so what do? We turn to food. And food's fun, like we just said, right? Food is fun, and that tastes good. And I get this little short-term chemical cascade in my brain that makes me feel better just for the moment. And the third and final way that we can use food in a way that it was never meant to be used is we use it to soothe and comfort. And this comes into the emotional eating aspect of things. Basically, we use it to medicate ourselves when we're faced with emotions that just feel too strong or too intense to handle. We feel like in that moment we can't do it, we can't handle it, and we think we need help, and the food steps in to play that role. So that's the first big way that we can have a pretty unhealthy, not so great relationship with food, is if we use it for things that it was never meant to do. The second way is when we begin to label food as good and bad, and then ultimately, whether you realize it or not, eventually you will begin to see yourself as good or bad when you eat certain foods. Now, man, you want to talk about an unhealthy relationship with food? Yikes, like this is no fun. As long as you see food as good and bad, then you're constantly either right or wrong. Basically, you're constantly judging yourself. Whether you realize it or not, you're constantly judging yourself every single freaking time you eat. And it's not only no fun at all, it's actually miserable. It's miserable. I mean, you want to enjoy your food, but that's really freaking tough when there's this constant voice of judgment in your head saying, well, you shouldn't be eating this. I mean, you're too fat. You know that. We should know this by now. This is just going to make us gain weight, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, good grief. This is the thing that I hear from so many people who join my coaching group. They're like, man, I just want to quiet that little voice in my head. I just want to be able to enjoy food without guilt or without shame. It's so powerful, and it's so not helpful. And then here's the thing, the other end of this spectrum, whether you could say, okay, well, Corey, I'll just eat good food, right? Okay. Then when you eat the good food, quote unquote good food, you might think, oh man, that's so awesome. But then your right and wrong brain, that all or nothing right and wrong, black and white brain kicks in, and it is super quick to remind you that all of that other stuff is bad. All that other stuff that you like so much, it's bad. But gosh, it's so good. Oh my gosh. But you know what? You can't ever really have that again, because now you're doing good and you're eating good. And if you go back there, well, then that's basically like an acknowledgement that you're bad and you should be ashamed and you shouldn't eat that. And then when you do, you've got to feel guilty about it. Oh, terrible, terrible. So not fun, and so much of a place that makes me sad for people and that I love to help people get out of and to move away from. The third way that our relationship with food can get to a really not so great place is when we allow it to become way too big a part of our life. Now, don't get me wrong. Food is a big part of anyone's life. It's a big part of my life. I freaking love it. But it is meant to be a big part of our life in a lot of ways. Like without it, we eventually die. It's hardwired into our brain for food to be important and to be sure that we have enough. I also believe that food is meant to be enjoyed. So please don't let your brain jump to that crazy, that conclusion of like, oh my gosh, Corey's about to go to the food is just fuel crap, because that is pure crap. I couldn't disagree more. Food is not just fuel. Food is meant to be so much more than just fuel. It's meant to be enjoyed and planned for and looked forward to. But this, like anything else, can become out of balance. It can move to a place of imbalance. And before we know it, food and our essentially lust for food can begin to take up way too much space in our head and in our life. And you may be thinking, well, is this me? I don't know, Corey. Sometimes I feel like I don't pay enough attention to food because I just snack too often or I eat mindlessly. And that's a huge deal. Don't get me wrong. Eating mindlessly is not helpful at all. But food can often play too big a role. So right now, I want to help you try to decipher if this is happening for you. We're going to go through a series of questions. You ready? Minimize distractions. Maybe grab a pen. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. First question. Is food an added joy to your life? Or is food the joy in your life? Is it the source of enjoyment, the source of happiness, the source of joy? Or is it an added joy? Is it like a bonus to your life? Next question. Does food revolve around your life and just pop in here and there? Sometimes just as, I just need some fuel. I just need some, some sustenance to move on throughout my day. I just need some energy. Or does your life revolve around food? And does your life revolve around the constant enjoyment of your food? And then lastly, does basically every single meal or snack or anything you eat have to be super tasty? Or is it okay to have a blend? And sometimes the food is indeed kind of just fuel, but at other times it's a delicious meal that you can't wait to have. And this is another perfect example of an area, like I mentioned earlier, where we can be tremendously out of balance. Sometimes we just don't have a balance between these two things. And we get into a mindset where we believe that every single thing we eat should be absolutely delicious. Now, I just told you, I love food. I love food. I look forward to food. I think food is meant to be enjoyed, but I also understand that it's a balance. And sometimes food is just fuel. Sometimes, underline that word, sometimes. Sometimes we just need food. We just need energy. We just need carbohydrates and calories and protein and all of those wonderful nutrients to give us what we need to physically function and get us through our day. And then other times, food is meant to be so much more than that. It's meant to be tremendous enjoyment. Next up, and let me apologize. I don't know what's going on with my voice. I'm not sick. I don't know if it's allergies. I don't know what's going on, but I feel like I'm scratchy and hoarse today, so I apologize for that. Anyways, next up, the fourth and final way that our relationship with food can get really kind of messy and a little screwed up is when we don't understand food and we don't understand just how powerful it is. And then we wonder why we feel like crap or why we have no energy or why we have relentless cravings or why we've gained so much weight. And then here's the really sneaky thing that can happen. It just all feels so unfair. And we think there's something wrong. We begin to think, wait a minute, there's something wrong with me, and maybe I'm sick, or maybe my hormones are off, or my hormones are out of balance, or maybe my gut is just out of whack and out of balance. And then if we're not careful, we can begin to feel like a victim. We're overweight and we feel like crap, and it's that thing. We're just not sure what that is just yet. We don't know what that thing is, but we got to figure it out. When in reality, there's a chance. I'm not saying it's for certain, but there's a chance that thing is just that you're pumping your body full of a bunch of really crappy food. You don't realize just how powerful the foods that you eat or don't eat and the liquids that you drink or don't drink, you don't realize just how powerful those are. Now, here's the thing. Before any of you are like, oh my gosh, Corey's such an a-hole and like, I can't believe he's, I know there's something going on with my body. Look, here's the thing. I'm all about going to a great doctor and getting blood work done and making sure nothing crazy is going on. Absolutely. But what I often see is people who might think something is wrong, they often will feel a million times better in just a few weeks once they begin moving their body consistently, getting some activity, increasing their weekly exercise, and they're also consistently giving their body what it needs to function. It's amazing how great your body can feel and function when you just kind of take care of it a little bit. Now, Are you ready for the recipe for incredible success when it comes to this? Because some of you might go, that's great, Corey. I would love to take care of my body and give it what it needs. But based off what you said, I think I've got a messed up relationship with food. And then here's the thing. I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what's right. Should I do Weight Watchers or keto or the Mediterranean diet or Whole30 or what? Like, what's right? I'm going to boil it down. It's going to be super simple and super not helpful, okay? I'm just going to forewarn you. High-quality foods, high-quality sleep, and we need to move our bodies, consistent activity or exercise of some sort that gets your blood pumping. That's it, gang. That's it. That's the magic formula. High-quality foods, high-quality sleep, and let's move our bodies and get the blood pumping on a consistent basis. And here's the thing. Like I said, I know that's completely unhelpful because you're like, what is high-quality foods? What's high-quality sleep? Entire books have been written about this. This is what I teach people inside my coaching group. I've laid this out in more detail on the podcast before, but like to expect me to go through everything in 20 or 30 minutes on a podcast episode, it's not realistic, and it would be doing you a disservice. But here's what I want you to understand above and beyond all of this. Food is freaking powerful. Oh my gosh. And once we begin to consistently give our body the things that it needs, it will revolutionize your life. You can feel so much better. So let's bring this over to something that may make a little more sense to us. Imagine if your phone battery started to die, or maybe your phone just wasn't working too well. And you were like, oh no, my phone needs fuel. My phone needs help. And so then you went and grabbed a big soft drink, maybe a Coca-Cola, and you poured it all over your phone. And then you're like, oh man, that didn't help much. Matter of fact, it might have hurt it. Oh no. So let me see. I'll just try hitting my phone with a hammer, because after all, I've seen other people fix other things with a hammer. Like when they were building the house down the street, I saw there were a bunch of people out there using hammers. And so if that fixes that should fix this, right? Maybe that's what my phone needs. If my phone didn't need a big soft drink, maybe it just needs to be hit with a hammer. And then that doesn't work. So you decide, like, you know what? I know sun is good for things, right? Like I've heard the sun is really restorative and it's helpful to be outside. So I'm just going to put my phone outside in the sun. Maybe it can get some solar power or something like that. I mean, doesn't solar power come from the sun? Now, some of you may be like, dude, this is so stupid. What are you talking about, Corey? Look, I know this sounds totally absurd, but it's not terribly far off from what we do with our body. The instruction manual of a smartphone is pretty simple, and ironically, nearly all of us are more than willing to pay attention and give that little baby everything it needs to keep functioning properly. God forbid our smartphones don't work. Our body, not so much. Like the instruction manual, we don't come with an instruction manual, right? And even if we did, it's probably a little more complex than a smartphone instruction manual, and it's probably a little bit harder to do. So, yeah, there's no clear-cut instruction manual, but here's the biggie. The thing that when your cell phone or your smartphone doesn't work properly or quits working, it's pretty abrupt, and you notice it immediately. With our body, it's a little different. The detrimental effects are often delayed. If we pour Coca-Cola or some other soft drink onto your smartphone, you get nearly instant feedback that you made a terrible mistake. You pour your body full of a bunch of sugar and a bunch of other super processed, not so helpful, low quality foods, and gradually over time, your body starts to perform less and less well. And gradually over time, you start to feel like crap. And then you wonder why, like, what in the world is going on? Like, why? What is happening with me? Oh, it's got to be my hormones. It's got to be my gut. And here's the thing. Maybe it is. Maybe your hormones are suffering. I just saw a video that some YouTube guy did where he had his testosterone checked. I think he's in his 40s. He had his testosterone checked, and it was a little on the low range. And he said, I'm going to just attempt to correct this with nothing but food and exercise. And so he just began eating a better diet, a healthier diet, and he began exercising on a consistent basis. And he went back, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 months later, and he had it checked again. He did nothing else. He took no medication. He did nothing. And his testosterone improved by 300 points and went back up into a healthy range just with food and exercise. And so, yes, like maybe your hormones are a little, he didn't do any special regimen, by the way. It's not like, he went super crazy with getting super particular. He just kind of followed some good basic stuff and was really consistent with it. So sure, maybe your hormones are a little out of whack. Sure, maybe your gut is a little out of balance, but it's unlikely. Again, go consult your doctor. I'm not telling you it's all in your head and you don't need to talk to your doctor, but there's a good chance that good old food, high quality food and exercise and maybe some more rest whenever you can get it will fix the problems, and you won't need medication. And you don't need some super detailed protocol where you drink apple cider vinegar every night and you wake up and, swallow a handful of turmeric or curcumin and mixed with, extra virgin olive oil. Like, no, maybe you just need some great high quality foods. So, quick review, my friends. Let's bring it all together. Being overweight is really all about being out of balance. When we boil it all down, we are just out of balance in a number of different ways. And often what's underneath, like if we pull back the layers, what's underneath that imbalance, what's at the foundation of it is a poor relationship with food. And this is such a gigantic part of what I do. It's my mission in life is to help people do two things. Number one, to help them repair and restore and improve their relationship with food. And then number two, and this is for a whole different podcast episode, to repair and restore and improve their relationship with themselves. If you do these two things, it's almost impossible for you to not be successful with your body. If you have a healthy, thriving, wonderful, positive relationship with food and a healthy, thriving, wonderful, positive relationship with yourself, you will be successful with your body and you will have a better life. Period. There's no way around it. Okay, so what's underneath the imbalance that can lead us to be overweight or obese? What's underneath this imbalance is often a poor relationship with food, and that can manifest in 4 ways. Probably a bunch of other ways, but for our purposes today, 4 ways. Number 1, we use food for things it was never meant to do. Number 2, we label it as good and bad, and then we see ourselves as good and bad when we eat certain things, and this just spins us deeper into the all or nothing, black and white, right and wrong mentality, which is unhelpful in so many ways in so many areas of life. Number 3, we allow food to become way too big a part of our life. Instead of being a wonderful, joyous part, it becomes and consumes most of our life. And then number 4, we don't understand the incredible power of food. And then we wonder what's wrong with us and why we feel like crap or we have no energy, when in reality, it may be the way we are or are not fueling ourselves and taking care of ourselves. All right, my friends, I hope this has been helpful. I hope you'll share it with someone. I hope you'll overlook my crazy, weird-sounding voice today. At least it sounds weird to me. I hope you'll overlook that, but I hope you'll share this with someone. And when you do, hey, if someone shared this episode with you, I hope you know, that means this person thought of you and they really care about you. And they maybe wanted to talk about this episode and go, hey, is this guy making any sense? What do you think? How's your relationship with food? Is my relationship with food kind of jacked up? Let's talk about this. So I hope you'll do that. I hope you'll take advantage of some of the awesome free stuff that I have for you. You can scroll down to the show notes. There's a bunch of links down there for you to access all kinds of different free downloads and different stuff like that. So be sure to check that out. And then last but not least, let's wrap it up like we always do. Please remember and never forget that there's so much more to you than a number. So don't let that little machine that sits in your bathroom get all up in your head and dictate your emotions or dominate your headspace for the whole day. No, because there's so much more to you than that. And yes, losing weight is great, and it can really improve your life in a lot of ways, but losing weight is not just about seeing that number go down. Losing weight is about gaining life, and there's so much more to that than just decreasing your downward force on the earth, which is your weight, by the way. There's so much more to gaining life than just losing weight. And I hope that you can embrace that. And I hope that even if you've struggled and failed in the past, that you know that you can begin to know and understand that you can do it. And even if you don't believe in yourself, it's okay. You keep coming back. You can borrow my belief. I'll keep working on you. We will get you there. Okay, my friend? Okay. Thank you so much for your time today. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.